Your hotbar layout and keybind setup are among the most important aspects of your play in Final Fantasy XIV. Almost every single day I get asked to make a video about how to set up your hotbar and binds, and so today I'll be going over my philosophies on hotbar layout and keybinds. For everyone that's asked about this video for the past month, you got your wish. Let's get into it. Firstly, I'd just like to say that 82% of you guys watching these videos are not subscribed, and I'd like to ask you that if you enjoy these videos, to please hit that subscribe button and show your support. It helps the channel out a ton and it makes me happy to see the number go up. Okay, onto the video. I'll start with keybinds first, since that will impact your hotbar layout. For me personally, I use an MMO mouse, a Corsair Scimitar, link down in the description, and that's what kept me from making these videos for so long. I use so little of my keyboard for skill binds, and I instead try to put everything on my mouse, and I use modifiers. I do have a few keybinds on my keyboard, such as Q&E for stun and silence, and R for duty action like in Ramu Savage, but in general, most of my binds are on my mouse. So let's talk about modifiers, that being Shift, Alt, and Control. If you set up 12 keybinds for one bar, you can essentially quadruple the amount of binds you have from 12 to 48 by just using modifiers. So in reality, you only need 12 easy to access buttons that can be hit while also holding down Shift, Alt, and Control. For most people that tends to be 1 through 5 on the number row, Q and E, R and F, and then some form of combination between C, V, G, Z, or X. Some people like using caps lock as a bind, but as someone who likes to type in parties a lot, I find it annoying to have to worry about spamming the chat with all caps. For my controller friends, you guys don't really have to worry about binds, and it's more about hotbar layout and UI design. So let's jump into hotbar layout. The most important aspect in your hotbar layout is keeping skills with the same effect or similar effects in the exact same spot. What I mean by this is if two skills on different classes have a similar effect, then you should place them in the same area on your hotbar and on the same bind. That way building muscle memory and not having to think about where you place a certain skill, since you know it will be there every single time. My Rampart, for example, is on Shift 1 for every single tank, meaning no matter what tank I'm playing, I always hit the same button for Rampart. Similarly for healers, my main AoE heal is on 6, that being Medica, Helios, and Succor. No matter what healer I'm on, if I want to AoE heal the party, I hit 6. Lucid Dreaming is an important skill on all casters, and so I have it in the same place for every single caster class. My entire hotbar will change, but you can see that my roll skills are always in the same place. Shift 6 being Lucid, Alt 3 is knockback prevention, and Alt 9 is addle. For melee classes, my ranged attack is always Shift 7, so no matter what I'm playing, when I'm out of melee range, Shift 7 will throw my weapon or do some form of ranged attack. Where you actually place the skills isn't the important part, but keeping them in the same place for every single class is. Following the same line of thinking, you should place all your important cooldowns near each other so you have peripheral vision on them. Once again with my tanks, all of my mitigation cooldowns are on my Shift 1 through 5 keys. Rampart is always Shift 1, my 30% mitigation is Shift 2, my active mitigation being placed on a friendly target is Shift 3, my class-specific cooldowns such as Dark Mind, Thrill of Battle, and Camouflage are on Shift 4, and finally my active mitigation is on Shift 5. These are all right next to each other so that I know when I need to see what cooldowns I have available to mitigate upcoming damage, they're all right in front of my eyes. This is true for all of my classes, whether it be tank, healer, or DPS. I always have my longer important cooldowns on my shift keys. Let's move into UI layout. I've already made a full video going over what I find important in a UI and how to design one well, and you can check out that video by clicking on the card in the top right. But I'll quickly sum up what a good UI looks like. I value putting all important information around your character, and that includes buffs, debuffs, the target bar, your HP and MP, and your hotbar near your character so that when looking at your UI elements, you aren't taking your eyes away from your character. The way this falls into hotbar design is that if you don't want a ton of buttons in the middle of your screen, then a common design people use is having your important cooldowns on separate hotbars that aren't actually keybound. These hotbars exist solely to display cooldown timers and keep your eyes near your character. The way you can set these types of hotbars up is by getting an unused hotbar in your HUD layout options, enabling it, and changing the grid format to how you want, then adding any skills you want to track. Make sure in your character settings you disable showing unused hotbar slots to make your UI clean and aesthetic. Lastly, let's talk about the macros I use. A ton of people ask about my tanking macros, so I'll go over all my tanking macros and some of the other ones I use for healing and DPSing. I'll put all these macros in a paste bin in the description. Before you ask, the reason you write multiple lines in a macro over and over is so that the game will read each line individually, therefore giving you a higher chance of immediate activation, since instead of reading one line, the game reads 10 or more. My most obvious macros would be putting my active mitigation on my mouse over target, as seen here. The way I put my active mitigation on other players is by mousing over them on my party list and using these macros to place it on my mouse over target. I also have a macro for Shirk, putting it on the second player in the party, which in my case is always the second tank. I haven't ever found a usage to put Shirk on anyone other than the second tank, as I'm not a griefing troll, so putting it on the second player has worked great for me in all 3 years of Shirk existing. My Salted Earth macro might be a bit different from most. I have almost all lines putting it on the target and then one last line with no special targeting modifier. This way, if the macro fails to place it on a target, it will show the default target circle so I can place it manually. If you play Warrior, you need a Home Gang on me macro. If you home gang a target, it will place a chain on them, immobilizing them. That sounds really cool until you realize that if the target dies while you have them home gang, then you will lose the buff. Kind of like right clicking off Super Bolide. Imagine you're in a dungeon pool and you're about to die and you have to clutch home gang to survive. And then right after you home gang, the target you placed it on dies and you also die. You can avoid that by always placing home gang on yourself. Lastly, for tank macros, this is my countdown macro. I recommend always putting a sound effect on your pull macro so that when people are alt-tabbed or not paying attention, the noise will cause them to look at their screen. Moving on to healing macros, I don't have too many, but the ones I do use are mostly on Astrologian. I have a mouse over rescue, play, and minor arcana macro. These are skills that I don't really want to have to target players for. Like if I see a black mage standing in an AoE for their ley lines and I need to pull them out of it immediately, I can just place my mouse over their character in the game world and pull them to me. Stupid black mages. Play and minor arcana are macroed because of how quickly you need to throw them out during sleeve draw. Having to target a player, give them a card, retarget the boss, cast Malefic, target a player, and repeat would be so annoying. So I just have them on mouse over macros. Lastly, my DPS macros. Once again, not too many, but there are a few worth noting. I have 2 macros for Nature's Min, one going on my mouse over target, my actual target, or me in that order, and a second one always going to the first tank in my party. If I know I need to target a specific tank at a certain part of the fight with Min, then I change this macro to either be 2 or 3 depending on who needs it. My Dragon Sight macro is pretty standard, going on mouse over or target, whichever comes first. If you're targeting an enemy and you use a target macro for a buff skill like this, then it will default target to you. That about wraps up all my tips for keybinding, hotbar setup, and UI layout. A bit of a shorter video, but a lot of people requested it, so here it is. If I missed anything that you think is worth noting, make sure to write it down in the comments below, and let's help each other all out to become the best players we can be. That's all I've got for you today, friends. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with my content, and check out my Patreon if you want to support me further. Follow me on Twitch for live streams, Twitter for tweets, and join my Discord to engage with me directly. All links are down in the description. Thanks so much for watching. Peace!